Alrighty, I guess we're live. Let's get right into it. Got some demons I'm working on, more demons. Last time they were in a bit of a sorry state. No color yet, but made some progress on these guys. And we're just kind of exploring things, just kind of feeling it out, but taking a bit of a hiatus from the YouTube channel, so getting back into it and everything. And today I saw that with the drop of the new MCU product, Secret Invasion, there's been a little bit of internet flutter about the use of AI in their intro, which is pretty interesting. I think that it was sort of the consensus in the industry, in the industries of, gaming and movie production, TV, concept design, and the use of graphics generally for those purposes, that these big box studios would sort of avoid controversy in this area, or rather the legal risk that using compositing software like AI would kind of dissuade them from doing so. But we clearly see that's not the case. And I think Secret Invasion is kind of interesting because if you look at, what they're saying, the producers are saying about their decision to use AI, it's very much motivated by thematic concerns, which I sort of sympathize with. I think Secret Invasion, especially given the, the themes of the show, the subject matter, it's sort of these transforming amorphous aliens kind of infiltrating society. I can sympathize with the notion that using AI to generate some of that imagery in the opening crawl would be appropriate. It certainly generates imagery that fits with that aesthetic and evokes that kind of emotion of, this is something uncanny, this is something not human. So I understand completely the impetus to jump to AI as a solution to that creative kind of symbolism problem. However, I think it's, and I think I might do a more scripted video on this because I do find it to be an interesting creative problem. What do we do with AI? Where is it appropriate to use? And in this case, despite the fact that it sort of fits the project, it fits the brief, so to speak, I think it still kind of falls short of what we would hope studios would be considering ethically and morally when they're using this type of technology, because Disney is this enormous company with tons of resources. They certainly have the money to pay folks to produce just about anything they'd want or need, and there's no production consideration here. There's no timeline consideration here that would warrant the use of something like AI image generation for the handful of pictures that appear in the opening sequence of Secret Invasion. Now, full disclosure, I haven't actually watched Secret Invasion yet, so I don't know what the I don't know how appropriate this choice is for the content of that first episode. But I don't think it really matters. I think the AI discussion is sort of separate from the rest of the show, and it's a decision that clearly some of the producers made, perhaps without thinking through what the implications of that would be. You look at what the producers are saying, for example, in interviews, kind of defending themselves, and it seems pretty clear that, at least from the brief statements that I've seen them make, and I haven't dug into this too much, it just happened today, but it seems clear that at least whoever is the spokesperson for defending this creative choice doesn't understand what AI is on the back end. They're very much describing it from a front end user perspective. For like, oh, we we told them words, the words generated images, we had them do more words for us, and they clearly, and what I assumed they would come out with is, I assumed it would be like, well, actually, we did use a Mid-Journey like piece of software or some kind of computing software that is similar to the diffusion models that are out there, but it's either the tech is proprietary because Disney has a shitload of money, or they've trained it on a specific set of copyright free and Disney owned data, that the images actually are primarily produced by some kind of ethically sourced, so to speak, pool of data, right? I assume that that's what they would come out with because Disney has a very robust legal team, despite the fact that a lot of the folks who are probably going to be greenlighting this stuff are going to be kind of old hats and not particularly with the times or with technology necessarily. That they would understand the necessity to get out in front of something like this and be like, well, we actually trained this model ourselves, or we actually, had some intentionality behind this besides just going to the big box AI and saying, yeah, we're going to take, all that data and let it create, these images. I assumed that something like that might come out, but it doesn't seem to be, because they haven't said that already. It makes me think, and the fact that they noted, I think the producer noted that the team actually contracted with a service, an external provider for this. That says to me that they did not, supply custom data for this, or supply a particular database that would have been, that wouldn't have contained artists' work that was not consented to be in those databases, right? The fact that they didn't say that says to me that, they're probably just using the same databases that everybody else is using. And really, I think, that is the current source of the power of AI, right? You can't really hope to get good images out of really small data sets. You need billions of images to produce convincing art and convincingly realist images. And in the case of, this Disney show, I think that some of the amorphousness you get from having that big giant soup of data fits thematically with Secret Invasion. You can kind of see from the imagery that it's sort of like, let me see if I can pull something. Let's see. MCU AI, Secret Invasion AI images. All right. So let me see here. Let me see here. Yeah. So I'm just gonna screen cap a couple of these and drop them in here. Yeah, like this stuff. Let's see. Boop. We're doing this like a really janky way because I just don't want to switch the source of my video feed. All right, so yeah, these guys. Yeah, this definitely looks like AI imagery. You can see like Samuel Jackson's like nose is kind of messed up in this one. It's sort of like morphing, but it fits with the themes. But it's like, yeah, some of these shadows are weird. It looks like he's wearing a weird mask. It produces an effect that I think that they're clearly going for, but there's like, it feels like there's visual noise here that like is sort of unintentional, or they sort of just couldn't scrub. Like, I don't know what these designs in this area don't really feel Skrull-like. They don't really feel like a particular type of kind of alien. Just it has this kind of like generic sort of robotic like feel. And I think that's all fine. I think if this were, a smaller scale project, for example, where somebody was like, yeah, we just felt like AI was a really thematically appropriate thing to utilize for this particular project, and we didn't have the resources to do it on our own. Obviously, there's still ethical concerns with, the sourcing of that data, but at least it would feel more justified than something like, Marvel's approach in this case. For example, I think one of the best things that the MCU has done in recent memory with their opening crawl is, or the intro scene or outro, for example, is She-Hulk. She-Hulk has some fantastic, really lush comic book style illustrations that are sort of like, they're like kind of not even cartoony, but they are stylized in the Marvel Comics kind of modern style, and then they have these courtroom vibe to it. And it feels very hand-drawn. It's honestly my favorite part of that show, because I I didn't like it very much otherwise. And with this, it's like, okay, obviously we are trying to evoke an uncanny valley type thing here, but there's really no reason you couldn't have gotten human illustrators and human designers to make that happen, right? It's obviously not a kind of barrier or impediment to achieve that. You just happen to get that a little bit more for free with AI. And I have no idea how long they worked on these images, how many times they went back to the drawing board on, or the writing board, I guess, how many times they had to re-input the prompt to get this thing out and up and running. And I'm not sure how many, from the news articles and the kind of the media buzz about it, I've only seen like 4 actual images that have slight animatics on them. Like 4 kind of major pieces that would have been generated by AI, and I don't know if that was animated by hand or if they used AI to also animate those sequences, which is possible. Definitely within the realm of possibility. Definitely doesn't feel like they would necessarily have needed a full-scale kind of VFX treatment for what they did with that opening sequence. So certainly a case where humans were taken out of the equation and work was given to an AI company. And it's interesting because obviously in this case, from the brief statement, the way the producer talked about it, it seems that they contracted or they paid for a service that allowed them to do this, and they worked in concert with either with somebody at that company to do that. I don't think the name of the AI has been revealed, which service they used, but it's like the data that that is being used in that context is not it does not per se belong to in either sort of a moral or even necessarily at this point a legal sense. Does not belong to that AI company. It is the work of artists who may or may not have consented in any way to allowing their data to be used in this fashion. So it's a very interesting kind of problem. It's certainly the most high profile example of AI being used in a major studio project, an absolutely behemoth, studio. And some people, I remember there was, from some folks I've talked to, there was a lot of skepticism about whether Disney would use AI. And I think it's fair to levy that skepticism when you're talking about, are they going to use it for animation? Are they going to use it for design work, concept design? How far is this thing going to extend into their workflows and the way that they're structuring their day-to-day kind of processes? And I think there's a couple things to note about that. I think it's going to be a long time before we see this type of stuff at any level in like a major motion picture project. This is a Disney proprietary thing. This is, straight to Disney Plus kind of stuff. So they'll have some control about how it's being displayed, where it's being displayed, especially with differential legal statuses of AI in different regions. For example, in Europe versus the US versus China. It'll be interesting to see how they kind of play with these tools going forward. And I hope that this will open up some kind of productive discussion about the ethics and legality of using this technology in such a prominent way through a company that really is kind of the forefront of this industry that employs so many artists and designers and VFX folks, and really works them to the bone. Like really, it is, and a lot of the buzz on the internet too has been this coming out in the midst of the writer's strike, and even though it is something where it's not directly related to writers, it is so obviously an industry workers' rights issue that hopefully it will kind of spark and generate some more discussion about this. Now, there's a couple of things that I wanted to talk about, and I'm kind of formulating my thoughts on the fly here. Like I said earlier, I think I will want to do a more scripted video on this that just talks about more so just the, obviously I mentioned that this is kind of thematically appropriate for the project, but the real world implications of it, in this case, and I think in most cases with any major studio like this, the real world implications of it kind of trump any thematic concerns, I think. It just doesn't sit right that, this giant corporation gets to utilize this technology at the expense of somebody who would have been employed to create this opening sequence in the first place, that they get to use potentially unethically sourced data. I say potentially, but I really mean, probably with like a 99% certainty, this is not data that was supplied with consent. And so with that in mind, it's like, just because it's the classic Jeff Goldblum Jurassic Park, just because you could doesn't mean that you should, right? This is definitely a case where it's a fun idea, but it is so lacking in any degree of tastefulness that they should have put the kibosh on this immediately. Like, I am really legitimately surprised that just from a legal perspective, they went ahead with this. And I say that, but now that I'm thinking about it, it could also be like a situation where they're trying to invite legal challenges to play it out on sort of a smaller scale, quote unquote, smaller scale project, like a direct to Disney Plus show where they have control over, for example, they could just pull and replace the intro at any point that they wanted to. They could just pull it, replace it if there were legal challenges, and it wouldn't be an issue. Whereas, if you have something, syndicated in theaters, that's a little bit more difficult to do, right? That's a more of a logistical problem that they would then have to kind of backtrack on. And they already do this. There's already situations where content is differentiated by region, for example. Obviously, that happens with translations, but, same-sex depictions that appear in Disney's films don't get broadcast in China, I think, or they have to change the script, so they change. So they're changing the content, they're changing the relationships with characters. They can certainly change out the intro scenes of these films to accommodate different legal and censorship scenarios, even scenarios of, is this tasteful, or viewed as a positive thing in a given region. So they have the ability to do that kind of stuff. And in this case, this is going to generate a lot of buzz. I don't know that it's going to be positive. I'm thinking about this as somebody who consumes Marvel stuff primarily as a person who just like I'm feeling the Marvel fatigue pretty hard. I mostly watch Marvel stuff out of almost a sense of social obligation at this point. Like me and my fiance go to see the new movies with friends. I was really pleasantly surprised by Guardians of the Galaxy 3. And aside from that, I haven't really enjoyed the theater experience of anything since, maybe No Way Home. Like I did enjoy Spider-Man, but like, ooh, it's been rough. Thor: Love and Thunder, bleh. Ant-Man, just awful stuff. And it kind of feels like, and even though Secret Invasion, at least the first episode, is getting okay reviews, it's being reviewed pretty decently. It's like, I'm feeling like I want to take this opportunity to just be like, nah, I think I'll just not consume this content anymore. Not out of a sense of like, do I really feel that this is, it's hard because with anything like this, where there's a whole host of people contributing to these projects, you look at something like Ant-Man Quantumania and you're like, there are some individually really excellent designs happening at, all over this movie. But it doesn't quite come together. It's like clear that, somebody at the top really doesn't have a vision for what this thing is supposed to be, or they do and it just doesn't work. Or in the case of a lot of MCU projects these days, they want to sort of have their cake and eat it too. They want the CG to look great, and they want to be able to make whatever scene they want, and they want to be able to do it in post after everything's shot, and that just puts tons of work on the effects folks so that it comes out looking, really subpar. Whereas if they had lined up their vision beforehand, kind of like Guardians 3 did, which had like pretty impressive visuals combined with a lot of practical stuff as well. And in this case, having not seen the show, of course, but in this case with Secret Invasion, there's probably tons of design work behind the scenes, design work that's probably informing these AI generated images to some extent. Illustrators and artists and VFX folks who are contributing to this project in other ways, and obviously, not that this thing is going to get boycotted to any degree that will matter, but obviously this is not their fault. This is the fault of producers who don't understand this technology or don't understand why it might be problematic to use in this context. And it doesn't feel like, at least based on what's been said about it so far, that they really have a proper response lined up to that yet. And it's kind of surprising, given how many folks in the industries like this have sort of had their finger on the pulse of this. And maybe I have a misperception about that. I obviously, I'm not, I'm not any kind of, I don't work for Disney. I don't work for Marvel. I'm freelance. I don't have any kind of expertise on this, and I happen to follow a lot of people who are really in tune with the AI stuff, but that doesn't mean that most people are. So I shouldn't say that they should be in tune with this stuff, but it feels like they should be, right? Feels like somebody at a company as enormous as Disney would have some fucking idea of like what the hell they're doing when they open this box of worms. I don't know. That's just me. Anyway, let's draw some stuff. Let's actually do a little bit of art to let go of some of these angry and confused feelings. I'm actually not angry about this. I guess it's fair to say that I find this to be very predictable. Like, it feels like a very predictable next step in the AI wars, as it were, for a major corporation like Disney to, bite the bullet and actually produce something that uses AI to a pretty significant and obvious extent. the only and the other issue I have with it is, doing it in the prominent way that they did, I think could be cool as a conversation starter, like I said, as something that gets us thinking, gets the public thinking about some of the ethical issues that are kind of coming into play with this stuff. The problem is, I think what's more likely to happen is that however this plays out in the court of public opinion, however this plays out in an actual courtroom, if something is brought against them, which I kind of doubt just because there isn't a good framework for kind of these specific use cases yet. I don't know, maybe there will be, but I doubt it'll come from a place that will be able to challenge Disney in a meaningful and productive way. You think about Disney's impact on the state of copyright law and intellectual property for the last 100 years, and they have been at the forefront of advocating, these pro-business interpretations of copyright and the legal status of intellectual property, right? So, for example, extending their hold on characters and IPs that have that would have otherwise fallen into public domain at a certain period, and extending that and making use of that as long as possible. And I think we're at a point where we're going to see like the original sort of Mickey Mouse stuff sort of come into the public domain. Obviously, Winnie the Pooh, at least the original iterations of Winnie the Pooh are coming into the public domain, and we're seeing stuff happen with that. But a lot of those efforts have in terms of extending that stuff, has classically come from Disney as a company. So it's really interesting. I think we're going to have a situation, unfortunately, where we see Disney and companies like them, studios like them, whether in the video game or the movie or TV space, I think we're going to see them wanting, at the very least, to maintain access and maintain legal rights to use tech that is going to generate them revenue and save them money. And they're going to do that at the expense of workers. And how do we know that? Well, just look at the writers' strike. Just look at any labor movement within a kind of capitalist organization of the economy, and you see that there is this fundamental tension with how the gains of automation are distributed, right? So we can't expect this to be sort of just a one-off fun little experiment that Disney is pulling here, that Marvel, the MCU, is pulling. We have to see it as, I think, a threat to people's livelihood and a threat to the status of working artists and illustrators whose data is being used, ironically, to create this stuff. And so I'm not hopeful about this. I'm not up in arms about it. I don't really, I'm just like, I don't think I'll ever end up working for Disney. I would work for Disney if they would have me. But I don't think I ever necessarily will. But yeah, I'm under no illusions that despite Disney, being a company that is built off of the backs of creative individuals and artists, I'm under no illusions that they have any meaningful allegiance to those individuals as workers or as a class of people, as a professional kind of association. I think to some degree there are obviously going to be people within Disney that do, But I think by and large, Disney as a corporation will want to maintain as much power and control as they can over any kind of means of production that they can seize. And if AI is one of those, then it will be something that Disney is going to want to maintain access to. And one thing I was going to mention earlier too is that I think, people, some people were sort of immediately skeptical of the notion of Disney using, AI tech, whether in, cartoons or in design work, because of the traditionally kind of high bar for quality that Disney has. And I think there's two things about that. I think in their larger projects, that is true, but is starting to sort of no longer be the case that they have these standards. I think that is starting to slip a little. At the very least, we're seeing less of a push for original content and much more of a focus on, for example, the remake market. We're seeing that. And the other thing is that Disney produces tons of stuff, and traditionally most of it has been trash. Like, looking back, you look at the Disney sequels, you look at of the kind of like Golden Age cartoons, and you look at Disney Channel's content. Disney has been in the business of producing and selling trash for a very long time, at a very high volume, and it's really only their major mainstream releases that have maintained that high bar for quality that was kind of set by the company when they were dominant in 2D animation, right? And so I don't really, I have no expectations that they won't try and use AI workflows when producing, crappy made for TV, made for Disney Plus children's programming, for example, or use AI to speed up workflows for their VFX contractors when they're trying to produce another one of these horrid live action abominations that they keep making, even though nobody ends up actually liking them. It's like these movies make money. It's like undeniable that they make money, and that is sort of the saddest part about it, right? Although I haven't heard, I don't know what the state of Little Mermaid is as the latest of these films, but it's like with them at the helm of this sort of stuff, kind of the first of the major studios to do something so blatant as have AI imagery in the opening sequence of a show. I think absolutely we're going to see them utilizing this stuff to a greater degree across their properties, and that this is sort of a first volley, a first test of the waters to see how that will go. But yeah, well, the other unfortunate thing is that we are definitely, like I said, especially in this context where there is this sort of thematic and content level defense of this choice, we're going to see a lot of people, coming out being stands for the AI generated intro. I'm not gonna do any kind of informal polling on this or try to find the folks that are doing this right now. But I imagine because there are already people like just defending AI just as like a general rule, like just coming out and being like, yep, this technology is unequivocally good. We don't need to have any kind of restrictions on it. Anybody that does is a Luddite and a moron. It's like I don't even need to like these people satirize themselves. Like what a ridiculous just like stance to have. I don't think you need to be a Luddite to see that new technology imposes all kinds of problems on a world that is unprepared for that technology. And this has always been the case and always will be the case. And technology can always be rolled out in a more humanist way. And I don't think that there is a concerted public understanding, like a widespread public understanding of how this is really going to affect people and how it's really going to affect art as an industry, artists as an industry, you know? So yeah, to say the least, I'm not optimistic about this situation. I'm not sad about it particularly. Like I said, I've been looking for an excuse not to watch Marvel shit for a while, and maybe this is it. Like, I'm kind of like, you know, maybe this is a chance for me to watch some shows that I've been meaning to watch for years. Or watch, you know, just pick a good movie, pick a good classic movie and watch it. I recently had, so my fiance had to travel for a wedding recently, and so I was left alone at the house it was just me and my dog, and we just had, you know, and when my fiance goes away, I use it as an opportunity to watch movies that I know she wouldn't want to watch with me. So I watched The Terminator. I hadn't seen The Terminator 1 in a long time, and it was, you know, just available on whatever streaming service. So I was like, yeah, I'll watch this. It's been a while. I'll sketch on the couch, you know, while I'm watching it. I don't, you know, not a film that I particularly need to pay a ton of attention to. It's a pretty basic premise. And then I watched Hellraiser 3. I've only seen the first two Hellraisers, and from my understanding, 3 is where quality begins to decline. Like, there's still some fun practical effects in that one. There's still some fun designs in that one, but you definitely, and it is, you know, all of them are corny, but yeah, it was still fun. And then I watched The Northman, which was quite excellent and quite weird, and you know, very violent. So again, not a movie that I would necessarily watch with my fiance. But I don't even know where. Oh yeah, just like, yeah, I don't have to watch this this shitty show. You know, I don't mean that like the individual show is actually shitty, but I mean like it's sort of shitty by design. It's sort of like throwaway content just by the nature of it. Unfortunately, it's sort of like, yeah, this is the filler. This is the content you sort of need to watch if you want to understand what's happening next in the MCU. And it's just like, aren't we tired of this? Aren't we tired of like needing to see every single thing that the MCU produces just to keep up with these fucking movies? Like, maybe this is a chance to be like, okay, well, there's so much good stuff out there being produced by really talented individuals and smaller studios, or just old movies that you know, this giant back catalog of human achievement and art that already exists. It feels like a good opportunity to be like, you know what, let's make that movie night instead, and not feed the kind of Disney algorithm. Send a message that their streaming service does actually suck, and nobody wants it. And that's, you know, obviously not something that's going to work, but you know, I don't know. Sometimes you need an excuse to like consume good content weirdly. And what I mean by that is, sometimes it's just tough to get in the mood to like watch a movie, even though you would sit down and watch a show. Sometimes you'd be like, oh, what if I don't like this like 2-hour thing? But it's like, what if you don't actually, you know? Because I definitely hate watched, for example, well, at least a couple of the MCU shows, but I hate watched Mandalorian season 3. Pretty awful, pretty generic, boring, uninspired, and totally like weirdly it's like they dropped a bunch of the sort of the kind of character arcs and sort of went with this, really, really underdeveloped, undercooked storyline with Bo-Katan and Din Djarin just sort of takes a back seat, and they had to come up with an excuse to get Baby Yoda back in it, and Baby Yoda's back, and he's just sort of there as a reminder that content is for children, right? I'm not trying to be like an asshole about it, but it is. It's like, oh, we've got Andor. That's the adult Star Wars show, and the kids can have Mandalorian because we never had a plan for actually making this decent in the first place. But now I'm just being a dick. But yeah, you could see how if you're already feeling fatigued about the direction of all these shows and about where they're going and where they're headed. This seems a good a time as any to jump ship, to be like, yeah, I get it. AI invasion, of the human realm, sort of this. It's part of the symbolism of the show. It's supposed to be uncanny. You're not supposed to know who to trust. AI. Ooh. I get it, but it's just like I think it would have been more fun if they had just actually hired human artists to emulate the style of AI, to see how they how close they could get it, or if they could like trick people into thinking that the images were AI generated. And honestly, if that were the case, if it comes out that that's what they did, they'd be like, just kidding. These are the artists who made these images. Gotcha. That would be honestly hilarious and actually pretty dope. If it just like sort of came out, it's like, oh yeah, we didn't generate we didn't generate these with an AI algorithm. We told people to look at AI art, and we hired some people to make stuff that looked like that, and that's what we got out of it. That would be actually sick. That would be a sick troll. It would be pretty epic and dope, honestly. And with the limited number of images that they used for that opening sequence, it does kind of feel like they could have done that without too much trouble, right? But that's, again, probably not what happened. Probably not going to see that news article coming out anytime soon, but it would be pretty funny. It would be pretty funny if that was the case. That's the other thing. I don't think it would be pretty funny if somebody tried to like come at them with some kind of lawsuit, and then that's when they revealed it. That's when they were like, oh, actually, we can document that these were created by, these are original creations. But the other thing with like a legal challenge to this is that like a lot of legal copyright challenges and stuff are based on like damages. Like, did you actually experience, or would you be likely to experience a financial blow as a result of this content that's been stolen from you? And I think the issue that AI presents in that case is like, because it is this amalgamation of the work of so many artists, unless you're like talking about something that's explicitly like in the style of X person, and you're out there selling that, unless it's something like that, it would be very difficult to link it back to like an individual, right? And without that direct link, any kind of legal challenge to the status of this would be rather difficult under the current, regulation regime and copyright laws as they stand. I'm not an expert on this, obviously. Don't listen to me. There are people working on this problem. Go check Steven Zapata's stuff. Go and talk to people about. Go look this up from reputable sources. Also, we're drawing a dude. We're drawing a dude here. I was really doing this automatically while talking, so there's not a particularly, I don't have really a point to this guy, but I am having fun with this kind of big chunky brush thing going on here. Just a big old chunker, just a big old chunkowitz. It's from a set. I can't remember the name of the set. I'll have to dig it up because it was something I bought on Gumroad from an artist like a long time ago. And then all of a sudden I get this like email from Gumroad that's like, hey, this thing you bought has been updated. And when I bought it, it was like just had some inking brushes, like a few inking brushes. And when I say a few, I still mean like a pretty decent amount. I think it's Friendin is the name of the artist. It's like Friendin's like inker pack or something. And then it was a thing where you buy it and then you get access to like any of the updates that come for it later. And it was there was like 200 brushes when I came back to look at it, and so I downloaded. I haven't even come close to trying them all out. Some of them are very specific kind of use cases, or it's like supposed to be for inking in bark or something on a tree, on trees and such, to kind of streamline those processes. It's been fun to play around with those. This is a set of brushes called Jack's Back. This is Jack's Back Stiff. It's stiff, extra stiff. And I don't really know what the difference is with Jack's Back. And I honestly, I've just been using stiff because I assume that it's a little chunkier. And I don't want to get into too many details with this too soon. And I think I'm already kind of like getting into the minutia of this a little too early. And like I need some bigger shapes. These little bubbles are sort of like these little, I don't know, nodules are kind of I'm not getting a good arrangement of big, medium, small here, so I need to add in some stuff. But I didn't want to, I don't want to do spikes because spikes is so. I realize spikes is like a really generic option for what this could be. We're actually gonna make this like it's like a thing that kind of protects his neck, maybe. Yeah, a lot of the demons on the other page were very organic, and so I just thought it'd be fun to do. Well, I don't even know if I thought it'd be fun. I think I was just rambling, and this is what came out of it. Maybe we'll have a couple spikes right here, and we'll give him. His horns are kind of like a crown, maybe. It still looks pretty generic. Maybe we'll. Anyway, what I like about this style is this brush and the way that it works is it's very crunchy and it gives you kind of these big bold shapes without having to work too hard for them, and then you kind of go in and refine them after, and that's sort of what I was doing beforehand with this brush. In particular, using it to kind of get sort of like the blocky forms, and then adding kind of organic structures over them. This is not an example of that over here. This is actually a lasso tool one, but if you look at, you're gonna see some of those guys back there. Yeah, I could mess with the layers, but I don't really feel like it. You get the idea. These were chunky guys, now they're fleshy guys. It's about the gist of it. All right, where were we? Even more demons. Okay. What are all these demons for? This is kind of like a combination of a couple things. It's going to be a sort of compendium monster manual type thing that I will publish and sell at cons. As like a kind of D&D tabletop supplement. Kind of talked about this before. And then the other thing it is just like a portable little mini portfolio that I can point people to or bring with me places for some design work kind of type stuff. So that's sort of the shorthand goal of this. I don't really like how this guy's legs are. I don't like how his legs are. We'll erase them. We'll just erase them. Never be afraid to erase your work. Don't do it compulsively or anything, but there's really nothing wrong with scrapping it. Especially at this stage, it's meant to be scrapped. I'm like noodling on this a little too much, I think, even. I feel like I should just go in for the big shapes. I think I want to give him a wider... Oh, I kind of like the idea of like a big, long sort of skirt. And making this whole thing longer. And we're actually going to resize this guy so we got some more space to work with on the canvas. Won't hurt none. Ooh, you know, the way he's holding this almost makes me think like double blade sort of situation. And we'll just kind of, you know, we'll just kind of rough pencil that in as a reminder that that's sort of what we were thinking of. Sometimes it's just important to get the idea out. And to be honest, I think this style of design is sort of breaking some of the rules that I've been trying to set for myself where, you know, it should be a little more intentional. You want to write stuff out, sort of get it down on paper and then really figure out your inspirations and what you're going for, get some keywords going so that it sort of informs your design decisions. And then when you see something cool, you can make a choice and you can say, is this just kind of cool looking or does it actually fit with the aesthetic that's going to evoke, you know, whatever emotion or feeling or goal that I want to achieve with this particular design. Is it showcasing, you know, what the character is to a sufficient degree? Even now we're kind of, I don't know. It's like the skirt thing isn't working for me as much now that I'm saying all that. But I don't really know what the point of this guy was. He's just a dude. Okay. We'll set him aside for a minute. I think we got a solid base on which to play. So we're going to put him right there. And I'm going to take a sip of water. Because I've been talking a while. And I'm thirsty. I'm a thirsty boy. Let's see, how long have I been going? Where does it say that on this thing? 53 minutes already. Wow. I didn't expect that. Cool. I kind of like to keep these to an hour and a half, roughly. Just because you get different creative vibes when you're on stream. And you can come up with some good ideas, but, you know, this kind of automatic stuff is a little easier than sort of sticking to a brief for me when I'm trying to talk through something. Maybe this one will try something a little more organic. Another one of these kind of amorphous fellows, but maybe he's got some armor elements. He's like corrupted, a sort of corrupted version of this guy, maybe. Corrupted by the forces of chaos or some such thing as that. I really like, you know, like blobby tumors on dudes and big weird, like, you know, arms that are out of proportion, or like one side's really big and the other side's really small. Those kind of things tickle my fancy in a way that maybe we'll try and explore a little bit here. And like the kind of like hunchbacky-ness of it. Kind of like emphasize that in the pose a little bit. Do I want to give this guy a big claw hand, or do I want him holding a weapon? I almost feel like weapon because I do want to get some degree of prop design sort of as a necessary part of these creatures, just so it forces me to do it and actually make them interesting. Like, for example, this is not a good example because this is really more of an extension of his like body, and it just kind of came automatically. But like, I don't know that I have a good example actually. Like this guy's sword definitely needs some more pizzazz, and I think when we take something like this into the next stage of iteration, different swords, we'll plop a bunch of different swords into his hand and see how they feel. You know, I kind of like him, this one, kind of as a foot soldier type demon, so they might have a basic sword, but probably something more jagged and more visceral than that straight sword feels appropriate, right? All right, so let's get this guy's big old crusty hand here. Give him some more boils. Well, and in D&D, there's that kind of distinction between demons and devils in the lore. Like, demons are abyssal and chaos spawn kind of things, and then devils are very lawful, very like meet a devil at the crossroads, sign a contract, that kind of thing. And so it could be fun to sort of play with that dichotomy and make like the corrupted version of each of these creatures and the uncorrupted but still really evil and badass versions as well. So that could be fun. Yeah, he's feeling a little generic otherwise. I don't know how do I pump him up? I think it's this bottom part that's bothering me. Let me just give him a big old tummy. Give him some tum. Give him a little tum there. Tum tugger or whatever. Y'all see Cats? I didn't see the new Cats. I think, have I seen the original Cats? I mean, like the Broadway recording of it. I've not seen Cats live on stage, but I definitely listened to some of the songs and found some of them to be fun. You know. I can't remember if Cats. I can't remember who's the playwright. I don't even know what do you call a person that writes a musical. Person who wrote it, I think, also did one called Starlight Express, where everybody's trains. It's like instead of cats, everybody's a train. And there were some pretty funny bits of stuff in that. And I can't remember. It might have been one of those plays where it's like there's some dangerous element of the set that was fucking with people when they were. I might be totally misremembering that. At any rate, it's funny that there's a musical where everybody's a train. Just kind of a funny bit of deep lore, deep musical lore. Not a subject that I am well versed on by any means, but if you're feeling like you don't have enough musicals in your life about trains, about anthropomorphic trains that can fuck, and that it feels like that's a thing that you could really have some more of. Starlight Express is probably the only musical that will fill that need in your life. I say probably. I mean, I can't be sure, but I'm fairly confident that I wouldn't be wrong about that assertion. Right? It feels like that's the thing that I could reasonably be confident about. Yeah, this guy's face is non-existent so far. Maybe like one small eye, one big eye. Maybe like no lower jaw. Just sort of like tongue flopping out. Big fangs. Again, not having a plan going into stuff like this, you can end up with some really generic feeling stuff. And it does feel like he is slipping into that territory a little bit, right? Could be a sign that we need to wrap things up. I think I said my piece on the AI intro stuff, at least for now. I think it is a really interesting... The Secret Invasion is an interesting locus for that discussion because of the subject matter of the show and how prominent, Disney is and what a big, industry leader they are, and how that is going to affect, the rest of the market for, art and AI stuff. It is a little spooky. It's the kind of thing where, for me, I think we're kind of past the point where, unfortunately, where I think AI art is interesting to me personally anymore in terms of its output. And what I mean by that is not that AI couldn't produce compelling images, but that AI will probably not for a while produce images that are compelling because they are AI generated. And compelling just means like interesting in some way. And for me, it's mostly that they're really funny. The early stuff was like really, really funny because it is so goofy and weird and just like uncanny valley. And that kind of stuff is frankly hilarious. Frankly, pretty awesome and cool that it exists, but it's sort of like this doesn't serve a function beyond its novelty at this stage of development, right? Whereas now that you can get, images that even you could potentially use, even if it is sort of because of their jankiness, that you could use in kind of a major project like this, it becomes way less interesting, I think. I think the weird stuff that we're, there's that like Bud Light commercial, not even Bud Light, but it's like, make me a generic beer commercial. And there's all these like, all this shit's on fire and like, they're drinking the beer, but they're like holding it out in front of their face. And it's sort of like, flowing itself into their mouth, which then like merges with the beer, like people eating stuff on video, or eating stuff in still images even, just looks, or looked, I think it's still, you're still able to get those results, but it looks so messed up and weird that it has this funny, like, oh yeah, eating is kind of a weird thing, right? It's like you're merging your body with this like external substance to suck out its nutrient and calorie value, and And it just looks so like crazy and weird that it has this like very unique aesthetic that people, like if somebody just drew that, it wouldn't be as interesting. It'd just be kind of like, what is the point of this? But when it is the amalgamation of all of these various images, it's like, why did this happen? And it's almost like inherently a mystery, because you could explain everything that there is to know about how the algorithm functions and what images were, queried, or, what data was queried to create the image as it came out. And you could explain all of that, and it wouldn't really give you a satisfactory explanation for the experience of viewing it and to the experience of, wallowing in whatever weird emotions that made you feel. Kind of like a real, human-made piece of art. But as we get to the point where AI is basically going to be able to generate images as people desire them, I think it's going to lose the wonder that it has for me anyway. And if it just becomes a thing that is part of workflows and just sort of a natural part of the industrial kind of like art making complex, I think it's going to lose all of its appeal to me as a unique form of art making, unfortunately. All right, that's just my feelings about it right now, of course. I think things are obviously going to be changing very quickly. Yeah, I doubt things are going to change quickly for the better for the most part. I don't know. Maybe that's just me being a cynic, but I don't think AI is not going to give us, the next wave of amazing art. And honestly, given the state of mass communication, maybe we're kind of past the point where that's even a possibility anymore, is for an art movement to sort of sweep up an international public's consciousness, so to speak, just because everything is so granular and specific to various groups, whether it's on the internet or it's there's all kinds of great art being produced now, and there's just so much that has been produced in the past. Everything's available at once. There really isn't a place for a national, large-scale art movement to make a huge impact on people's psyches. And especially if you're talking about a piece of software that fundamentally composites from these vast patterns, it's well, we already have sort of experienced all this before, and there's only so many ways that these things can be combined before they just aren't interesting. And then you add the kind of human factor of it. It's well, people are going to combine things where it's oh, this is two familiar things, right? Two things that people know about and understand, two or more things, however you want to do it. But you get past two or more things, and it's well, how many elements can you add to an AI image before it becomes just noise? So for example, there's all it's oh, Harry Potter Balenciaga style or whatever, or Lord of the Rings by Balenciaga, these sort of fashion thing combined with pop culture thing. And how many things would you have to add before that became illegible as a combination of its constituent parts? And I don't think it would actually be that many things. and that's where there's sort of this mysterious set of influences that humans have that makes their process of crafting art based on their inspirations a little bit different. They stew in the brain differently. The psychological experience of a brain, which you could argue is mechanistic in some ways, but it's certainly mechanistic in a very different way than a diffusion algorithm is mechanistic. That human brain is going to devise a much more, well, not even intentional, but it's sort of it's taste based, and it's ephemeral to some extent. Sometimes an artist is going to draw explicitly on their influences, and sometimes they sort of just feel it out, and it's sort of just based on, it's like, this is my taste, this is my preference, and there's mystery there. There's like, why do I like this thing? I have no idea. There's really, I could point at all the things about it that are appealing to me, and that wouldn't be an explanation of why I like it. Or, you could explain intellectually, it's like, oh, like, let's say Mike Mignola, I really like his kind of blocky, hard shadow style, the way he simplifies stuff. I like that, he clearly has this mastery of anatomy that you wouldn't expect of something that simple, but the way that he emphasizes the knobby knees and the bulge of the calf on characters and their legs, and when Hellboy like punches somebody, like the motion of it shows this mastery of anatomy in this stylized context that is just really compelling. And you can say all that, and it's like, but not everybody's going to agree with you, first of all, that Mike Mignola's style is aesthetically pleasing. And second of all, that's just, ultimately those things boil down to, well, this is descriptors of what Mike Mignola's art is representationally. These are just elements of his, visual elements of his work. And then, he could make like a psychological argument about why elements of that might be appealing. But ultimately, all these things are really unsatisfactory in terms of explaining why you like what you like. And, there's a whole, you could go into your whole backstory as a person. It's like, oh, my dad and I used to read Hellboy comics. My dad would, buy every trade paperback, and he'd read it and I'd read it. And then we mutually kind of go back and eventually, it's like I would be the one buying the comics when I got old enough, and then he would read the ones that I bought and vice versa. So there's all that kind of stuff. And descriptively, again, it's like not even that those explanations are necessarily, I guess they're not even necessarily unsatisfying so much as they are like, you can only get so far, you can only get so deep into the explanation before you just have to rely on the mysterious notion that your, ultimately your preferences and your thoughts and your experiences rest on a foundation that is outside of your control. I think if there's an argument to be made for AI art, it's sort of, not from a legal or ethical standpoint or a workers' rights standpoint, but from just a philosophical standpoint. I think it probably rests in sort of that realm, that the way we process things is fundamentally mysterious, and the way that AI processes art and composites it is, even if we can explain it, it's like the data itself has an emergent quality when this methodology is applied that makes it valid as an art form. I'm not making that argument. I'm just saying that feels like the most potentially useful way to make that argument. Not even useful, I guess, just the most convincing way to me, anyway, that you could make an argument for AI art's validity. Beyond its validity as a capitalist automation tool. Like, I think it is, when I say valid, I don't mean good. I mean valid, like, yeah, that is actually an argument for AI. It's just not an argument that would be made on behalf of like workers. It would be made on behalf of the owning class, the class that is producing, the class that controls the means of production already. So here's an accident that emerged. It's like these wrappings. I don't know what I imagine them to be exactly. I was like, maybe I'll do that on his arms and stuff instead of the instead of the big bulbous arm thing. Or maybe he has that still, and it's like bulbous, but he's sort of trying to contain it by wrapping it in these. Yeah, I kind of like that, where it's kind of like busting at the seams a little bit in certain spots on his body. Yeah, that's kind of fun. And maybe even like... get that in more spots. It's another thing I like about this chunky brush is like you get access to that silhouette a little faster, right? And then I like the idea of making these are like chunky, they're like hanging down now. He's got one right there. Maybe some of these are hanging. Almost mummy-like. Ooh, and you know what? Yeah, he's got like, this is like wrapped here. That's kind of interesting. I kind of dig that. That's something. That's a much more unique thing than it was before. I don't know what the point of it is. I don't know if it's actually good, but it's a thing. It is undoubtedly a thing. Can't deny that. All right. I think we'll wrap it there for today. I like this thing. I like this guy who's a thing. And yeah, I think maybe I will watch the first episode of Secret Invasion. I don't know. I feel like this is a great opportunity to just swear off of Marvel stuff for a while, kind of test the waters, see where they end up going with this. It's again, not a creative choice that I endorse. Not something I'm happy to see. Does feel a little bit inevitable. And it does feel like Marvel, Disney is kind of shooting their shot, testing the waters, seeing what the reaction will be to using AI in their production process. Shots fired on behalf of big business, and we'll just have to wait and see where it goes for the most of us. So yeah, anyway, Nate G. Draws signing off. If you happen to come by and stop in and watch this later, I hope my rambling isn't too incoherent and you get something out of this. I hope you enjoy watching these little demon fellas get designed. And yeah, have a great day, folks. Take care.